Welcome everybody to this year's final edition of BioStock Live, coming to you direct from Stockholm, Sweden. It's a pleasure for me to see all of you gathered here today, and also I'd like to extend a warm welcome to the viewers online. We're holding this presentation. These presentations today will be in English, since we have an international network as well, a media platform, which we actually extended even more as of yesterday when we published our premier international newsletter from BioStock, focusing on the Scandinavian life science industry. I hope you should enjoy that. Today's program is very exciting. We have 6 leading companies in their respective fields, and we will hear from companies talking about as diverse things as oncology, ophthalmology, gut biota, and also cranial regenerative implants. So a very exciting program. And not to forget, the first speaker of today is Axel Sjöblad from SenzaGen, and he will tell us more about SenzaGen's unique tests that do not involve animal testing. So welcome to you, Axel.
Thank you very much, Jonas. I'm very happy to be here at BioStock Live. My name is, as you heard, Axel Sjöblad, and I am the CEO of the biotech company SenzaGen since June this year. Before I start the presentation, I also want to say that we are right now in the middle of a large issue, a combined directed issue and rights issue, where we raise 106 million kronas. Who are we? SenzaGen was founded in 2010 by 2 professors at the University of Lund, Carl Borrebäck and Malin Lindstedt. We still have our head office in Lund, and we also have a subsidiary in the United States, SenzaGen Inc. We are listed on Nasdaq First North since 2017. So our technology then, what is it? We develop, perform and sell animal-free tests assessing chemicals' ability to cause allergic reactions. And of course, the main objective with this is to eliminate the animal testing that goes on. And right now, if we compare to other validated tests in the world, we have the highest predictive performance, which is above 90%. And our focus areas are skin and respiratory sensitization. The position the company is in right now is commercialization phase. My mission, being brought on by the board, is to take this company from research to a growing, profitable company. We have set a break-even target of reaching that at 2022. And to do that, I have presented a new commercial organization that will help me to run this work. What I will talk to you about today is our technology, the GARD platform, our market, our product portfolio, and then I will give you some ideas about our strategy going forward. So, a little bit more in detail then, what are we doing? What we are doing is actually aiming at replacing what you see on the left of this slide, the animals in the tests. And currently, the accuracy of the animal testing is between 70 and 75%. And our mission, of course, is that mice are not men. We think that it is much better to test products that will be used by humans on human cells. So we have our own patented Senza cells. And out of these, we have went through the whole genome. We analyzed 29,000 different genes to discover the couple of hundred genes that actually react when they are exposed to a substance. And to be able to analyze all of that data, we have used machine learning and using algorithms that we have created ourselves, and that is actually a core asset of the company. So by using modern technology, we can move away from the animal testing, combining genomics and machine learning, and actually reach a predictability and accuracy of 90 to 95%. When we compare our method to what is validated on the market today, you see at the bottom of the slide the LLNA, which is the animal testing I just talked about. Then you see 3 other tests, in vitro tests. They are called DPRA, HCLAT, and Keratinosense. And you see our test on the top. If you compare, you see that our accuracy is the only one above 90%. And that is, of course, because we use many more biomarkers than the other tests that are quite old today. We use around 200, and they only use 1 or 2. Another important difference is that we can also classify potency. And potency, simply explained, is actually that we can also say how much of a substance that is needed if the allergic reaction shall start. And the other in vitro tests cannot do that. That can only be done by animal testing and by our test. The market we are acting on today is a fast-growing market. The total market was estimated at a value of approximately 129 billion SEK in 2016, and we expect that to double into 2022. But it is also important here that you notice that our addressable market here is approximately 5 billion SEK. So we address a smaller part, which is the part that is related to this skin and skin sensitization primarily. On our board, we have a very recognized professor. His name is Ian Kimber. He's one of the persons in the world that knows most about animal testing. And when he found out about our company and our test method, he said, "I would like to be with you. Can I join your board?" And together with his network, he has helped us to make this picture, which illustrates a little bit the potential of the market and what we are aiming at. On the very left side, you see that we estimate that approximately 1 million mice are used worldwide every year for this type of testing. And then you should know that 18 to 20 mice are used per test, which gives us an opportunity of approximately 50,000 tests per year when we talk about skin sensitization. And that is what you see in the middle picture here. That is the market we address with Guard Skin and Guard Skin medical device. On the right, you see the potential that we have estimated for Guard Air, which is then addressing the respiratory allergies. That is, of course, a new market for us where we have just launched a product, so I have not included that in my break-even analysis. On the very top, just to give you an idea of how many tests it would take for us to make break-even, you see that if I look at the cost base that the company had in 2018 of 33 million SEK, it would require approximately 800 tests. So we are not talking huge numbers here. So with that said, we feel that our technology can really be a game changer in the safety testing. And that is, of course, driven by updates in the global regulatory environment within this segment. Already in 2013, animal tests were banned in the cosmetic industry, and that is what you see, the black areas on this picture, the European Union, Brazil, India, Australia. You also see in light brown areas where prohibitions are considered, the US, Canada, and Southeast Asia. And already today, there are states in the United States that have banned animal testing. And then finally, you see in gray areas where guidelines to use alternatives are being put in place. So they have not taken the step yet, but they are actually assessing how it can be possible to reduce the animal tests. With that said, we feel that there are many trends that really gives us a headwind. First of all, the animal testing bans that I just talked about. Secondly, a general will to move away from animal testing, which you also see if you look into different regulatory authorities, web pages, etc. They have a clear aim of reducing or possibly also eliminating, but that will take much longer, animal testing. There are also many stakeholders using these tests that are interested in improved test results, higher accuracy, and faster turnaround times. And that, of course, can also give them an opportunity to save money. One example here is that if we can work together with a pharmaceutical company very early in the product development phase, we can help them to eliminate substances that could create allergic reactions so they don't have to bring them through the development program. And then finally, something that we see very, very clearly, not for example in Sweden, is the increased community engagement, which is really in favor of eliminating or reducing the number of animal tests, and a general will, of course, that we take better care of our animals, which in turn, since many years, has of course also been important for companies in their CSR work. And one example I see here when I start to contact companies myself is that we immediately get access to them when we say that if you are doing tests, is it possible for you to maybe move away from animal tests if you haven't done that or thought about that already? And then we get immediate access to these companies. The product portfolio that we have targets four, which we consider high potential industries, where they do a lot of tests. It is the cosmetics industry, the chemicals industry, the pharmaceuticals industry, and the medical devices industry. Before I started, the company had set a target of launching at least one new method every year, and they have done that, of course, with the aim of addressing the four industries that I just talked about. So in 2017, Guard Skin and Guard Potency were launched to address the skin allergies. Then in 2018, Guard Air, with the name, a possibility to predict the ability of chemicals to induce airway allergies. And then finally, I also could participate myself when I had started in the launch of Guard Skin medical device, which we launched in September this year at Eurotox in Finland. And here we address the medical devices market. And I was extremely happy that we could launch that product just when I came on board, because I have most of my previous career within medical technology. And as you may know, right now the requirements are increasing on the companies in the medical device area to do more tests on the different materials they use. So the ISO standard is getting tougher and the medical device regulations are increasing the demands. And that is a good opportunity for us to advise and help those companies, and also to be able to provide them with a good test method for testing their materials. With that said, it is also very important that when you do the cultural shift in a company and go from having had a really strong focus on research to becoming more commercial, that this is clear that you need to sell what you have. So that has been my message, both to my organization and also to you that may be interested in following or already follow SenzaGen, that right now the message is that we sell what we have. We have launched 4 extremely competitive tests, and these are the ones that we will roll out now, primarily in the EU and the United States. So look at what I've said so far as an as-is situation description. What will we do going forward? First of all, we aim at break even in 2022, and also at becoming the new global standard for in vitro toxicology testing. Having said that, that cannot happen before we have received a validation from OECD. And you have followed the company before, you know that that work is ongoing. I will come back to that in a second. But preparing for that is very important for us now. So that is why the key priorities currently are to implement the new commercial organization in the market, to increase the general Guard platform awareness, to sell, as I said before, to sell the products that we have already launched, and to increase our market presence, and also to expand geographically in the EU and the US. And that we will do through direct sales, but also through signing more agreements with both distributors and CROs. And CROs, these are contract research organizations. When all of that is done, we have also said that our researchers can focus on continuing to develop our pipeline. But that is the second priority right now. And all of that we are doing because we want to have as much presence as possible when we get the OECD validation. And the latest news we have here is that we will get new information from OECD in 2020. And here I also want to highlight that the OECD validation is not part of my break-even case. This comes on top of that case when we get it. And the reason for that is, of course, that I prefer to count on things that I can really affect myself. Up here you see the work that we are doing before the OECD validation. focus on EU and the United States, and then we work with companies in all our segments in the product development phase and also when they need pre-regulatory testing and weight of evidence. When we have the OECD validation, you see that there are other symbols added, which symbolize, especially you can see it in cosmetics and chemicals, those pink symbols here. They present the picture when we have been a recommended method, and that is also where we can start to talk about really becoming an industry standard. The business model that we will use when we have come all the way is a B2B model, where we will work through those CROs and distributors to really get the maximum impact on the market. And then our aim is that approximately 80% of our business shall come from the license labs, the CROs. Right now, the picture is opposite. 90% comes from direct sales. And the direct sales business is very important for me right now when I'm starting to build the market. Today, we have 9 CRO partnerships in place. And 2 of those CROs that we have agreements with are among the top 5 in the world. That is Charles River and Eurofins. And in parallel to the picture you see here, we have another 9 discussions ongoing right now. We also have a growing base of recurring customers. And just one example here is Croda that you see on the left that develops specialty chemicals. And Croda used our test method as weight of evidence when they applied for REACH registration earlier. So the way to reach the break-even then, looking at the history and the relations we have established so far, we estimate that approximately 40% of the business will come from chemicals, and then you will see an even split between cosmetics, pharma, and medical device. I have a little possible upside in this, I would say, from the medical device because we launched it so recently and the feedback we have received right now is very positive, so it's possible that that part will grow faster. From a geographical point of view, as I said before, main focus will be the EU and the United States, and we estimate that approximately 85% of the revenues will come from those 2 areas. What you see above that from Asia will come closer to 2022 than today. The team that will help me to do this, I'm very happy to have on board. On the right, VP Sales, Peter Nailstedt, with whom I had a very favorable competition when he was running Brobjer and I was running BioGaia. And together with Anna Chauvrier Hansson, that will recruit the CROs, and Tina Dackermark Lavasani, that has done exactly this type of marketing when she was working in companies like Cellavision, for example. I feel that I have a very strong group that can help me to drive the commercial part here. So the strategy is set, the goals are there, and now remains to do the work and to really create a track record. So thank you very much for listening. And now, of course, I'm open to take questions.
Thank you very much, Axel. I'm going to start out with see if there's anyone in the audience who has a question for Axel. If not, then I'm just going to go right ahead and say, so you have a product that seems very competitive. Like you said, it has a higher accuracy and also it takes into account 200 biomarkers. Yeah. You also have 4 different business areas, so to speak, focus areas. And you also mentioned the fact that you are now remodeling the company for commercialization. So what would you say is the main challenge at this point going forward?
I think the challenge that had been a little bit underestimated before is actually the fact that when you go from research to commercialization, it takes time, first of all. And secondly, it's also a cultural shift in an organization. When you have a group that has done phenomenal research for many years and you ask them to start to sell, it becomes a little bit of a challenge, of course, because they have not been educated and primed to do that. So that is why it was important for me to have a management team now where we have a clear majority of commercial experience, which then, of course, is affecting the rest of the organization, firstly. And secondly, we have also asked all the team members today to really be salesmen or saleswomen. And that was hard in the beginning. But then we said, everyone can contribute here, because if you have researched, you can make presentations at the different congresses and symposiums around the world. And then we are other people in the organization that can pick up and drive the sales as such. So that is one part. And then, of course, one reason for also taking in money now is that we will add capabilities and resources on the commercial and marketing side.
And speaking of strengthening the organization and reshaping the organization, is that the focus? I mean, knowing your product is crucial to be able to sell it.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier direct sales as a very important key driver for the growth. Going forward, what will the balance be between the selling yourself and selling through distributors?
Yeah, I think that while we are waiting for the OECD to validate our method, the definite number one driver will be direct sales that we do. Because by doing that, we can get in direct contact with the largest companies in the world that are doing these types of tests, build relations with them, get them to use our material and become references to us. And that also gives us a very good feedback, as you know, that have been around in sales for long, that we get the first-hand information from the market as well. And what we want to do here is, of course, to raise the awareness of the technology so that when we get the validation, it will be much easier for the CROs to roll out.
And what kind of the track record that you've seen so far? You mentioned the labs that you're working with and so on. What have the responses been from the market so far?
Yeah, this was very important for me when I made my own due diligence before coming to SenzaGen. I mean, I have decided to spend hopefully my best CEO years at this company. And the reason for that was that we have a proven technology, we have good feedback from the customers that have already used the tests, and we see a huge potential. We know that it works. Then, of course, the sales work as such has to be done, but it's the feedback from the customers that I have received that is so positive that really triggers me here.
And a final question before our time's up. Seeing that you have then such a competitive product and you're in a phase where things can really start to take off, in what sense would SenzaGen be a possible takeover target from a bigger player?
Well, of course we are. I mean, to my knowledge, that question has not been raised so far. But I mean, if we start to grow and people see, I mean, the need of this type of technology much broader, because this platform can actually also be copied and pasted into other areas than the one we have talked about before. Of course, there could be an interest. But I have to say that my main mission now is really to develop the company and to build it and to make it commercial and profitable.
We wish you best of luck with that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Axel. Let's give him a warm hand.
Thank you.
So with that, I thank you, Axel, and we are getting ready here for the next speaker. And let's see if I can be the tech whiz. I don't think I can, actually. So I will probably need some help here. In a minute, we will hear from Brobjer, who is CEO of Arocell, and hear about their exciting products and where they are going. And we are ready for you now, Mikael. Welcome.
All right. Thank you, Jonas. And thank you, everybody, for listening and coming for this meeting. My name is Brobjer, and I'm CEO of Arocell. Arocell is an IVD company working with biomarkers within cancer treatment. And what we really try to do is improve the quality of life and reduce the number of deaths for patients, but also reduce the cost for treatment of cancer patients for the payers and the caregivers. And our vision is to do that using our biomarker, thymidine kinase 1, as a biomarker and measuring that by our proprietary technology that we developed. Arocell, that's the shorten. It's a company that is based on science from SLU and Uppsala University. And there has been long and profound development and work with thymidine kinase as a protein and how it can be used. And in 2015, we had our ELISA kit CE marked as a product. And until 2018, the company was very much a R&D focused company. So a little bit more than 1 year ago, the board of directors took a strategic decision on looking over the strategy of the company and decided that the company was needing a new management. And that's when the time when I came into the company in just about a year ago in December 2018, together with the new CFO, Anders Hultman, we started the process of getting the company much more focused on commercial activities and have a clear strategy goal based on the work that the board of directors had done previously. So, in a short, Arocell is an IVD company. It's based in Uppsala, as I was mentioning, and we're working on the IVD market for cancer treatment, which is expected to grow up to about $16 billion in 2022, and it has a double-digit growth on an annual basis. The company is listed on Nasdaq First North Growth Market since 2016, and we are currently in a process of a new rights issue, and actually tomorrow is the last day to subscribe on that rights issue. And our market cap before the rights issue was announced was 114 million Swedish kronor. A little bit back to biomarkers, and understand that biomarkers is very widely used in cancer treatment and has been sort of having increased interest, and is the objective of biomarkers is of course to diagnose and to predict and follow up on patients' treatment. And you could basically sort of sort into biomarkers into 3 different areas, where you have the prognostic biomarkers that would give you an understanding on sort of life expectancy without any treatment, and depending on the signal of the biomarker on the disease. And those are quite well common and of course widely used. And there's also a large class of biomarkers that would be predictive biomarkers that would sort of predict you in how you will respond to treatment, depending on different kind of genetic biomarkers or other factors that would affect you in the treatment of a specific treatment that you get. And then finally, it would be the pharmacodynamic or response biomarkers that would actually sort of tell you how you responded, how a specific patient responded to the treatment giving. And that's in the area where Arocell is working. As I was mentioning, we developed a kit for measuring thymidine kinase as a biomarker. And it is very much a response biomarker, showing how a specific patient have been responded to treatment. And you can also look in biomarkers in sort of what kind of characteristic it has. It could either be a protein biomarker, it could be circulating tumor DNA biomarkers or microDNA RNA markers, or circulating tumor cells biomarkers. And just to make clear here that what we are working is a protein biomarker, which is relatively easy to handle and measure, and also has a relatively long half-life in the circulating blood. You can also look in what the biomarker is measuring, and many biomarkers is measuring sort of the tumor mass or trying to understand the volume of a tumor. But the biomarker that we're working with is more a proliferating biomarker that's more showing the growth or how aggressive the tumor is. And finally, you can divide the biomarkers into how they are taken. And lots of those biomarkers that are currently used is immunohistochemical biomarkers, which is needing a biopsy for getting material to measure your biomarker, or you have a liquid biomarker, which is a simple blood test, or you can have other different techniques, such as imaging also. And our our biomarker is a liquid biopsy using a blood test. So what do we have then? We do work mainly within breast cancer treatment, and what we've been showing with a study that was performed at Karolinska Institute, that we can follow patients that are neoadjuvant treated breast cancer patient. And neoadjuvant treatment, that means that they are going through a cytotoxic treatment, usually 6 cycles of cytotoxic treatment before a surgery. And what we do is, after the second cycle of cytotoxic treatment, we follow the patient by measuring their TK1 level, the thymidine kinase level, before and after the second treatment. And the difference in that, the delta of that, gives us understanding on how effective the treatment, the cytotoxic treatment has been. And that gives us a situation where the oncologist can either continue treatment or choose a alternative treatment in that position. Currently today, most commonly is to use imaging, and in that case you have to wait about 3 months before you get that result. And by that time you're through with that 6 cycles of chemo treatment. All right, a little bit about sort of the thymidine kinase 1, the protein, the molecule that we look at. It's an enzyme, intracellularly enzyme that is connected with the DNA replication. So it is not supposed to be outside the cells in the circulating blood. So increased levels of TK1 in your bloodstream would indicate abnormal cell turnover, most likely due to a tumor in your body. And so that is one way of sort of using TK1 as a diagnostic biomarker. But as I was mentioning, we mostly prefer to use it as a response biomarker, where we look at elevated levels of TK1 after cytotoxic treatment would indicate that the treatment has been working. More cancer cell has been broken down. And we do that by measurement. Immunoassay method that we're using is quite effective in measuring low volumes or low concentration of TK1 in a complex media as blood. And when we compare it to other methods, we are superior to all other methods. We are the only human-specific TK1 and TK1-specific measurements. There is also circulating in lower concentration, but TK2, which is coming from the mitochondria, which also exists in the body. We do have a unique pre-treatment that is crucial to make the measurements giving a correct value. And the method itself is measured with a simple, easy ELISA method that most labs can run without adding on an extra expensive equipment or know-how. And the antibodies that we use, which is the heart of our technology, is well patented and has protection until 2034. I was mentioning a little bit about the market itself, and it's the total IVD market, biomarker market for cancer treatment is about 16 billion in 2022. And the two actually major parts of those would be breast cancer and prostate cancer, which in 2012, the breast cancer biomarker market was about $2 billion US. We see forward multiple revenue streams coming to the company. Currently, we are selling the product as mostly as a research use only product, and we sell the TK210 ELISA, and we sell that through distributors, and we mainly have a majority of our sales in US and China. That sales is characterized of lower volumes in the R&D space, and the pricing according to sort of the demand on the R&D market. I was saying also that our products CE marked in Europe, and therefore we are a possibility to sell it for clinical sales, and we're also working on getting it FDA cleared in the US. I'll come back to that a little bit more, and that will give us more possibilities for clinical sales, and where we focus on the US. That would expand our volume of sales, and the pricing will be depending on the reimbursement that we are able to get on the specific different markets. We have also out-licensed our technology, and we are still working with other IVD companies on out-licensing our technologies to IVD companies that have specific platforms that generate high volume assays in the routine labs. And that sales is generated by of course, then high volume of samples going through, and the pricing also, again, dependent on the reimbursement that you can get. And for Arocell in case, that would be then royalty on sales. But to generate both the research use only and the clinical sales of our TK210 ELISA, we need a set of distributors that can sell it on each market. And we have, during this year, set many different distributors in place, mainly in the US, North America, where we have 3 different distributors, as well as we have 3 distributors in Asia, in China, South Korea, and India. We do also have a couple of distributors in Europe, and we also look for more distributors on specific markets. I mentioned that we're looking for FDA clearance on the US market, and we do have a clear path going forward in that. And we are on our way to do a pre-submission to FDA, and we're going to do that during 2019. So we have a couple, 2 or 3 weeks to go. And we are planning to do that on the what's called 510K pathway, and with early treatment response, using TK1 as a response biomarker. And we think that we would have a discussion and a meeting with FDA during 2020, and in that, with that discussion, we will find whether or not we will need to have additional clinical trials performed, and we said that before no later than end of 2021, we will have FDA clearance of our product. Besides that, we have a license agreement with Roche, and that was placed in April 2018, and that's a non-exclusive license agreement where Roche in licensing Arocell's technology to use our technology on their cobas platform to set measurements on TQ1 for the cobas. And Roche is a major player in the IVD field. They have about 30% of the market share in sense of assaying in the clinical routine labs, and roughly about 35,000 cobas instruments are placed out on hospital labs in globally. Well, summing up, we are working hard on building value for the company, and we do that by creating awareness of how to use TQ1 and showing clinical utility on measuring TQ1 in an oncology setting. We do that by running clinical trials, and we focus on doing that in the area of breast cancer as well as prostate cancer. We do also expand, as I was mentioning, our regulatory by getting FDA clearance in the US, and also preparing for the new regulations IVDR that will come into effect in May 2022 in Europe. Even though we have a licensing agreement with Roche, we are pursuing other IVD companies for out licensing of our technology to maximize that opportunity. And of course, increasing and generate the sales of our specific product, TK210 ELISA, as we do through distributor on specific market, mainly North America and Asia, and collaboration with contract labs and CROs. We do have a lab working in the US, Corgenics, that is running our kit for measuring TK1 on samples that come into their lab. And we do also do that by collaborating with oncology companies that are developing new oncology drugs, and will have are able to use measurement of TK1 to see how they will be effective already at preclinical stage. Now I turn over a little bit to talk a little bit about the new issue that we're having, and we do have a right issue that is on a summary of 39.4 million Swedish kronor, and it's 100% guaranteed, and the subscription price is 150. Together with this, we have a direct issue corresponding to 15 million, and that's with the same share price of 150. And as I was mentioning, the last day for subscription of this will be tomorrow, the December 4th. We planning to use this money very carefully. It would be a total of 54.4 million, and we will use them to focusing on getting FDA clearance in the US, and to do health economic and pricing studies, as well as marketing introduction activities on the American US market. We also have a portion of those money to widening up the indication. We would go to the FDA with a breast cancer indication, but we also have some portion of this money to work on additional indications, such as other cancer forms. And of course, it will make the company running and going through the activities for the coming at least 2 years. We expect a high news flow in the next 6 to 12 months, where we are able to report clinical data from at least 2 clinical studies, and we will also initiate additional 2 clinical studies in the near future. And we do have internal activities that also will be published in previewed papers. And of course, we will also report on our discussion with the regulatory authorities in US. As a final slide, I just summarized the company and what we feel that we have that we have a superior product for measuring the thymidine kinase in blood, and that we are using that as a biomarker for early treatment response detection of breast cancer. And we also see that this can be applied in other cancer forms. So after breast cancer, we see that we can go into other cancer forms, such as prostate. And we have a solid clinical program to show clinical utility. And as I was mentioning, we do have interesting data to report the coming 12 months, as we can see. And our expansion in the US has a clear way forward. That will be my last slide, and thank you for your attention.
Well, Michael, you actually made efficient use of your time, also the short time for questions. So I'm going to have to limit myself to one single question.
Okay.
And then, of course, the audience can contribute. Okay, so Rutger, you can have the honor.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you're normally reluctant to discuss competitors in detail, but for me to understand the difference between your product and, in this case, BioVica's, can you point that out for me?
I can, and it's of course difficult when the company itself is not here to respond and getting the same opportunity. But we are measuring the concentration with with antibodies, immunoassay method, and by that we are human-specific and we are TK1-specific. If you're measuring the activity, you will not be human-specific, you will not be TK1-specific. So that's one of the major big difference between our sort of technologies. We are measuring the concentration by using antibodies. They're measuring the concentration by calculating the activity of the enzyme itself. And that has some sort of basic differences that gives us the possibility to be human-specific and TK1-specific. But if you're measuring the activity, you cannot make TK1-specific or you can't be human-specific.
So in your view, your method is more accurate?
In our view, yes, our method would be more accurate. We know that there are more companies besides the company you're mentioning that do activity measurements, and that is a common way of measuring sort of the presence of an enzyme. But we feel that we are more specific and we are more sort of exact in the sense that we are only measuring human TK1.
So I'm going to have to break in here and say that you are very welcome to continue the discussion. And also, I know there are more questions here for you in the break. So, but now we have to prepare for the next speaker. Thank you very much, Mikael.
Thank you, Jonas.
And coming up next in a hurry is Jessica Martinsson, CEO of Sprint Bioscience. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you. My name is Jessica Martinsson, and I am the CEO of Sprint Bioscience. Sprint Bioscience is a drug discovery company focusing on oncology, and we offer our projects for partnering with the global pharma industry. And I'm here today to present our project portfolio and our business model. And since we, as a company, from the very beginning, has implemented a commercial focus in the company, I would like to start by introducing the different out-licensing deals that we have been able to close. Over the last 4 years, we have been able to close 3 different partnering agreements with global pharma players. 2 of them are still active, and 1 of them is most likely to enter clinical trials during next year. We started off in 2015 with the first out-licensing agreement we did with Bayer. That was a project that we ran together for 1 year, and that was then terminated, unfortunately. But in 2016, we made our second agreement. That was with Pharma, a US-based company focusing on AML. In that program, we managed to receive a high net total deal value of $240 million that we will get if this project gets to the market. Earlier this year, we managed to close our third deal. That was with LG Chem, a Korean company, where we are working with NASH. And in this case, we have received a total deal value of $230 million. And I also would like to put this into context. So this is a full summary of our current research portfolio. We have our most advanced program, the PIP4K2 program that we run together with Pharma, focusing on leukemia, a specific form that's called AML, and most likely to enter clinical trials during next year. Our in-house program, BPS34, focusing on immune oncology. Our partnered program with LG Chem, focusing on NASH. And our latest addition, the VADA program, where the target is still undisclosed. And to build this company, we have so far brought in 145 million Swedish crowns from the shareholders. But in parallel, we have also been able to have revenues, and we've been invoicing customers for almost the same amount, 120 million Swedish crowns. And we are today 30 people in the company, and 25 of us are actively working with drug discovery. Today we have a running cost of running this operation of about 50 million Swedish crowns. And to go a little bit more into detail with our projects, I will give some representative examples from the projects we have in our portfolio. And I would like to start with our PIP4K2 program that we run together with Pharma, a US company that focusing on AML. AML is a very severe leukemia, and there has been really no big change in the way that these people are treated over the last maybe 40 years. And there's still a poor prognosis where only 24% of the patients are still alive 5 years after diagnosis. And because of this, there's a big unmet medical need and, of course, a big market. So what we have done is that we, together with our partner, Pharma, have been able to demonstrate that inhibiting this protein, PIP4K2, is an efficient way of restricting tumor growth. And this data that you can see here is an example from one of our compounds in the project, where we have shown that with 2 different doses of our molecule, we can more or less totally block the growth of an AML tumor compared to control in this particular model. And we have a broad chemistry program where we have several different molecules to select from. And previously this year, our collaborator, Pharma, decided to put one of these molecules into clinical trials. So they nominated the molecule to push forward for IND-enabling studies. And a little bit of the background around Pharma. Pharma is a company with a very strong academic background and very strong funding. Among the investors in the company, you find 4 big pharma companies in the US, AbbVie, Lilly, Johnson & Johnson, and Pfizer. So they have very strong support for their business. And so far in this project, we have been able to receive $5 million in invoicing, plus research funding for the work that we have performed together with Pharma. And as Pharma has initiated the IND-enabling study previously this year, we are estimating that this program will be moved into clinical trials during next year. And that will also be the point where we will be getting our next milestone in this program. Moving to the next partnered program, our NASH program, where we have made a deal with the Korean company LG Chem, and we have a total deal value $230 million if we get to the market. Here we are focusing on a disease which is not oncology, but a metabolic syndrome connected disease called NASH. And NASH is described as a deposition of lipids in the liver. These depositions eventually lead to increased inflammation and fibrosis in the liver, and that can, if it remains untreated, lead to liver failure and liver cancer. So this is a severe disease connected to overweight and diabetes, and the big pharma companies have a huge interest in trying to treat this disease. Here we are working with a novel protein, a novel mode of action, where it's postulated that this mechanism will counteract the deposition of lipids into the liver and eventually also release the symptoms of inflammation and fibrosis in the liver and totally revert the disease. We are currently working with several different chemical series and have work ongoing to be able to demonstrate the proof of principle for this new type of project. During the first year of this project, and we will be able to invoice $4 million from LG Chem in this program. And the next milestone we are expecting to achieve is when we can demonstrate the proof of principle for this new project. Also some background of our in-house program, our VPS34 program, which is focusing on immune oncology. And this is a totally novel principle for immune oncology that we have been able to demonstrate. Short of immune oncology, that's instead of having a compound that's actually directly working on the tumor, the drug is affecting the body's own immune defense. So the immune cells can then target the tumor and limit tumor growth. And we have demonstrated that our VPS34 program is doing exactly that, why VPS34 inhibition is activating the immune response, and that restricts tumor growth. Together with that, we have also built a lot of knowledge within the field, and that is something that we would like to make further use of within the company. So we are now also trying to establish several other projects with the similar type of focus and similar mechanism of action. So what we have demonstrated with our VPS34 inhibitors is that we, as a monotherapy, this is an example with one of our most advanced compounds, SB2024, can have an effect on restriction of tumor growth, and that we also have a good effect in combination with one of these other immuno-oncology molecules, which are called the checkpoint inhibitors. This specific example is a PD-1 antibody. And as you can see, we get a good combination effect on this lower part of the graph, where we do the combination treatment with SB2024 and anti-PD-1 antibody. This is a totally novel concept that basically Sprint Bioscience is the only company that demonstrated this, and we are currently building a lot of knowledge in this new field. So I have so far been talking about the different projects that we are running in our pipeline, and we have also shown that we are able to partner our projects in a very early stage and been able to get high deal values. I would say that we are one of the fewer companies around the globe that has managed to be this successful in these early preclinical stages. And I would like to try to explain to you why this can be done. This is a rather busy slide. It consists of 2 parts, and this summarizes all the licensing deals that was done during 2018 globally in the pharma industry. And what you can see here is that the data is divided both based on development phase in the project and also therapeutic area. What you can see here is that the majority of all the licensing deals that were made in the industry in 2018 was actually in early preclinical or discovery phases. What you also can see is that the majority of these deals were made within the area of oncology. So to summarize, the part where the pharma industry would like to partner in this process is in early preclinical phases and within the area of oncology. And that summarizes our entire business model, that we would like to provide projects available for partnering where there is a commercial need for the pharma industry. So to summarize this company and what our possibilities are, we have demonstrated that we, with an early revenue and spreading of the risk, can create value. We have shown that we have an efficient process where we can repeatedly deliver new projects into our pipeline, which the pharma industry has an interest in buying. We have also established a very lean organization. We only need a limited amount of money to be able to bring a project from start into commercialization. And after that point, it's our owners, it's our customers that pays for our development instead of the owners. And we think that is a superior business model. We have also so far shown that licensing deals in the preclinical phase can also generate high net deal values. We have also generated that we very early on can have a commercial focus and bring in funding and cash flow into the company based on the upfront and research funding that we were getting in these early stages. And of course, we still retain the big upside that is in this industry. And it will only take one of our projects to get into late clinical phase or to the market. so that this company will get a large portion of these revenues. So with that, I would like to conclude that we have built a company with an early revenue stream, a risk diversification, but with the remaining upside that we still have in this industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jessica, for an interesting presentation. I can see that we have questions in the audience. Please go ahead.
You mentioned the deal value. Do you get royalties also?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I forgot to say that. Of course, we get.
What size?
We are not allowed to reveal that in specific, but it's like a single-digit number on percentage of the sales for the future products.
Always love those descriptors. It's a high single digit. Could be then all between 8 or 10 or 8 or 9. So.
Follow up. When do you decide a project is ready for out-licensing? What stage do you need to have reached?
We're working with small molecule drug discovery. I didn't have time to go into our exact research portfolio and how it works. What we basically do is that from the very beginning, we start addressing the question of commercialization from the very beginning. So when we have, once we have established a program, we start to do a limited investigation with kind of key customers, what they think about the target. And somewhere...
Yes, over there.
I'm not really sure if I followed your question.
You have 3 times the money you need at the moment,
I think the question must be assuming that the 145 million raised so far is still in your bank account.
No, I get that. No, that's the total amount that we have raised from the market over the 10 years that this company has been around. And what we have right now in cash, so to say, we had 11 million Swedish crowns during Q3 and the latest report. And we are constantly working with like double stream of income, where we from time to time have taken in money from the market, but also in parallel have been able to invoice customers. So right now, for the rest of this year's agreement with LG, we are still entitled to invoicing about 10 million Swedish crowns. So we are having a stream of income there constantly, but we continue to also bring in money from the shareholders to continue to grow the company. Right now we have an option out that will be that's now traded, and it will be signed for from the 14th of February to 28th of February, with a strike price of 14.50 Swedish crowns.
I'd like to say that the deal flow that Sprint Bioscience has had so far is quite impressive. And obviously you have an efficient research and discovery model, as you mentioned. How much do these previous deals mean for you going forward? I mean, as door openers to potential new partners?
That was an excellent question, and I must say that it makes a totally makes a very big difference, us having been established as a partner now in 3 different continents in Asia, Europe, and the US. And we are now in a quite unique situation, and we would like to capitalize on that, of course, as much as possible. We are really well known right now with the pharma players. We usually say that we're a lot more well known in Boston than we are in Stockholm. And I think we realized that we have more customers than we actually have projects available for sale. And I think that is really the sign that we have found a niche where there is a big market demand, and we are constantly trying to build new projects that can be partnered.
We actually don't have that much time for more questions, but I was a little bit curious about the VPS 34I project, and as you mentioned, combination there between with checkpoint inhibitors, which is a field that's sort of hot right now. And where would you say that you are on the timeline then going forward? When would you be hoping to partner this one?
We have an active discussion with global pharma about this project. This is a totally new mechanism of action, which makes us forced to prove a lot more than if we can rely on biology that is out there available for everyone to read. So we are now working with 2 parts of that. One is that we, together with an academic collaborator, are going to publish a lot about this work that we have performed, and also continue to discuss with big pharma players. But for us, it's really important to find the right partner for this project. That is even more important than getting a very high upfront fee, because our chances of getting to the market with this molecule is improved if we find the best partner who knows how to deal with this biology. And since it is a novel field, there are several players that have started to get into this type of biology, but we are still ahead of everyone else in the world. So I think we just need everyone else to catch up on the knowledge in this field for us to be able to really do an efficient partnering on this program.
And follow up to that question, I mean, you show the data, which looks promising. Is there potential to both widen the scope or the number of patients that could be reacting positively to the treatment, or is it just a matter of boosting the efficacy?
I would say that with the mechanism of action that we have, which is rather orthogonal to everything else that is in this field, there is a possibility that we could combine this with basically everything that is ongoing in the pipelines with the big pharma companies, and the checkpoint inhibitors are just one of these different examples. So we are now looking at other combination partners to be able to really identify the best niche for this, for the future development in the clinic.
Very exciting. If anyone has more questions, you'll be welcome to ask them in the break, which is going to start right about now. So thank you very much, Jessica.
Thank you.
Mobiler av, om ni inte har den stängt av. So, welcome back from the short break, everyone. I hope the coffee and the cinnamon buns were good to you. So, we're entering the second and final part of our program here today. We are going to listen to 3 more companies. And the first out is Redwood Pharma with Martin Vidaeus, CEO. Welcome, Martin.
Thank you.
Okay.
On November 12th, 3 weeks ago, Redwood Pharma went out with a press release that the last patient was treated in our phase 2 trial for RP101, our therapy for postmenopausal women suffering from dry eye disease. This milestone represents the largest accomplishment for the company to date. And we're really excited about what's happened the last 12 months. In February of this year, the first patient was enrolled, and we've had actually a very good enrollment according to plan, and the last patient, as I said, was just treated. And we are now compiling results, analyzing, and look to publish top-line results in Q1 of the coming year. So that means that we'll be accelerating now the partner activities for RP101 and also expanding our current portfolio of products. We attended BioEurope in Hamburg last month, and I have to say it was a success. I mean, BioEurope is a fantastic platform for large companies and small companies to meet and to talk about innovative products that can be developed and brought to market. We met with companies, big pharma and smaller companies, to discuss the potential of RP101. And I'm very happy that we had such a good response. Some of the takeaways from that meeting was, number one, is that big pharma understands that dry eye is a multifactorial disease, that there's not just one single bullet to solve all types of dry eye. We're going to then now follow up on BioEurope and going to be in San Francisco for the JP Morgan conference in San Francisco. So for those companies who are watching on the internet right now, you can contact us and we'll try to set up some meetings to discuss RP101. Our idea then in the company, our business model, is to develop products through the end of phase 2. And now we're looking for partners to take over phase 3 and to commercialize the product, RP101. So we'll expect them then to produce, sell, and market this new dry eye therapy. We have retained a transaction advisor to assist us in this process. This is a group that has experience within life science, within ophthalmology, within licensing, and mergers and acquisitions. So the goal here is to generate a structured process to maximize interest in the licensing of RP101. We can be looking at different types of licensing arrangements, either with a global deal or in several smaller deals. And here, one does not preclude the other. Perhaps even smaller licensing deals will be larger than the whole. And we'll be evaluating new potential products in the coming months that fit into our ophthalmology focus. We're currently looking at new products. So the interest is large within ophthalmology, both from an investor standpoint and as well from big pharma. We feel like that we're well positioned. Let me tell you now a little bit about RP101, our first drug candidate. It is a low-dose topical estrogen therapy. It'll be the first of its kind, where it is not just dealing with symptoms of dry eye, as most therapies do today. We are going to be affecting an underlying biological mechanism. We'll be helping primarily postmenopausal women. The medical hypothesis being that when women go through menopause, the amount of natural estrogen circulating in their systems diminish, thus causing dry eye. There's a similar model within vaginal atrophy, where today estrogen topically is the leading therapy to help keep vital cells for women. So we're just piggybacking on this. So we have a unique target patient population, a unique mechanism of action, which we feel are unique selling points for RP101. Little bit of background of what is it? What is this therapy, RP101? Well, it's based on two components. The first is estrogen. Estrogen is a widely known active substance has been used for over 50 years in various therapeutic products. What we've done is we've modified it to make an analog that fits within our formulation. Estrogen today is found in over 500 different products globally. And this active has been shown safe and effective in 2 prior clinical trials. The second component is IntelliGel. And IntelliGel is a drug delivery system. It is a hydrogel that basically a drop that you can put on the front of the eye to control the release of active substances. This has been tested non-irritating in vitro and has passed through toxicology without any problems. that is prior to our phase 2. And we have the exclusive license to use this within ophthalmology globally. Let me tell you about the compelling history about estrogen in the treatment of dry eye. Redwood Pharma acquired the rights to data from 2 prior clinical trials from nascent pharmaceuticals in the US. Estrogen was then formulated and administered 4 times a day in 138 postmenopausal women. And here we saw really interesting results such as burning. And E3P may actually affect many different causes, many different etiologies compared to Restasis, which really just deals with the resulting inflammation of dry eye, where we're addressing the underlying cause. So estrogen demonstrated significant effect in both objective and subjective symptoms. Here is an interesting evidence of what we think it can do. On the left-hand side, you see the production of tear fluid measured by the Schirmer test, AST. Over a 12-week period, we see that one of the groups actually could then stimulate production of tear fluid. This is an objective measure. So we're influencing a biological mechanism for the production of the critical components in the tear film. At the same time, on the right, we have a subjective measure, foreign body sensation, FBS as it says. Over the same 12-week period, we saw a diminishing of this symptom significantly. So what compelling evidence? On the left, we see that we increase tear fluid, and on the right, we reduce symptoms. This, from a regulatory perspective, is what the agencies such as the FDA and the EMA want to see. And we can say here with confidence that we can help patients by delivering estrogen to the front of the eye. So the conclusions, thus, from the 2 prior trials with estrogen, both signs and symptoms were significant or better than baseline and or vehicle. The Schirmer test, which measures the production of fluid, showed improvement over placebo as early as 4 weeks. And we saw significance at 8 weeks with Schirmer test production, as when you compare Restasis, you saw that at 12 weeks. So a fantastic story from a unique selling point compared to the competition, the leading competition. In short, it was safe and effective. So what are we taking from this? Well, Redwood said that we could improve this product by formulating with a vehicle, with IntelliGel, to perhaps reduce the number of doses per day, increase convenience, and perhaps even increase effect for women. So we created a new trial here in Europe that's ongoing right now. It's a randomized, placebo-controlled, multi-center phase 2 trial for postmenopausal women with chronic or moderate to severe dry eye. The clinics were located here in Europe, in Germany, Hungary, and Austria. The first patient was treated in February. The last patient was treated, as I said, here in November. And we expect to present top-line results in Q1 of the coming year. So we are looking at different objective signs and subjective symptoms. The primary objective is to look at establishing effect in the dosing regimen of RP101. And the primary endpoint, though, then will be looking at the production of tear fluid by Schirmer test. Then we have secondary endpoints such as signs and symptoms. I think there are 9 total. And then we'll be looking at safety as well as pharmacokinetics of RP101. We divided about 100 patients up into 4 groups to basically look at a high and a low dose, to look at the possibility of dosing once or twice a day, which we think will really make RP1 a convincing therapy out on the marketplace. And this trial will also help us assess IntelliGel from a performance perspective, as it'll be the first time that's being tested on such a large basis in the clinic. So the goals of the current trial are: 1, show effect at 1 or 2 drops a day. Where the prior tests were done on 4 times a day, now we're trying to reduce to 1 or 2. This will help thus improve uptake in the marketplace and market penetration. Demonstrate proof of concept of this low-dose estrogen therapy, looking at safety and efficacy. And then from a product positioning standpoint, to look at the target patient population of women where today, the current therapies are trying to treat all patients with all types of dry eye. I think that we'll have a unique selling point with our technology or with our product because we're focusing on a specific target group. Also, building evidence around the mechanism of action that yes, we are dealing with estrogen, we're dealing with a critical component that's vital to healthy cells in the body. And then the idea then is to now result in endpoints that our partner can use in phase 3. So, what does the future look like? I think it's quite bright for us. We have a dry eye market that is really interesting, and the potential for our commercial sales are also quite interesting. We recently commissioned a survey of ophthalmologists and payers in the US and in the EU. And the fantastic results were that the market survey indicated a high intent to treat. It seemed that the medical hypothesis that a estrogen deficiency was the root cause of dry eye in postmenopausal women, that was really easy to understand. So doctors felt something I can prescribe, and this is something that the patients can easily understand. I think this just supports the idea that our product has the potential of really penetrating the market quite quickly. Great potential for it. So the plans going forward are thus: 1, compile and analyze the phase 2 results, and I think we look at targeting publishing of these top-line results in Q1. I want to underscore for the investment community and our shareholders that this is a very a serious process here, rigorous process that's going to take a little time to make sure that we produce the highest quality results. And we're going to compile a compelling clinical package for licensing and regulatory approval. I think this is key for us in our licensing talks with Big Pharma. And we'd like to maximize RP101 value with one or more licensing and development deals. So we'll be looking at either global license or regional or national licenses. And to wrap up, we'll be looking at also expanding our portfolio of products where there are large unmet medical needs. So with that, I want to wrap up, and I just say I look forward to coming back to you in the first quarter of next year with even better information. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Martin. So you're in a sort of expecting now, waiting for results. It's like waiting for Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great stuff, huh?
Yeah. The field, you mentioned the market potential, which is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, quite recently there was a very big deal in this area.
Yeah.
I don't know how many parallels you can draw. It was Novartis buying Takeda's drug Cidra for $5.3 billion with $3.4 billion up front.
Yeah.
How excited did that deal make you?
It's reassuring to see that interest by Big Pharma. It confirms that, one, the dry eye area is quite interesting, and that Big Pharma sees the value of new technologies to acquire. I think, as there's an expression in English, one shouldn't get ahead of over your skis too much. We still have to deliver in terms of the phase 2 results, but I think that's a really good deal to look back on. There's another deal that was done recently by Aerie Pharmaceuticals that bought a Spanish dry eye project for something about $10 million US upfront, and this was announced just a couple weeks ago. So I think that there's a lot of activity. It's just good for us.
And you mentioned that you have discussions ongoing and that you're out there to the partnering events around.
Yeah.
What would be the ideal scenario for you when it comes to partnering? Is it a big pharma player that goes global, or is it more, do you want to diverse?
You know, I don't want to preclude any solution, because I know that we have people that are listening, other companies that are listening right now, so I don't want to exclude anybody. I would say that you know, one deal, if a global deal, obviously has its charm. You know, it would be a very effective way of monetizing our project. But that's not to say that smaller deals in aggregate would be actually more valuable. Clearly, it would be a little more of a burden from our standpoint in terms of executing the deals. But I can't say that I want to exclude any deal.
That's what we call a luxury problem.
I hope so. I hope so. I hope we're there.
I want to ask if there's anyone in the audience who has a question for Martin as well. Because if there is not, we are actually going to have to conclude now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin. So, next up, we're going to listen to something, well, completely different from going from the eye to the gut. And here to present ImmuneBiotech from Lund is Shahram Lavasani. And I've seen him present before in Lund, and he was awarded for that presentation. So you're in for something special. Perfect. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, every day we are exposed to the news and informations regarding the importance. I think this jumped too many times just with one bottom. Sorry, guys. Something is wrong with this. It jumped. Every day we are exposed to the news about the importance of our gut microbiome and our health and disease. We read the news, how important it is to take care of our gut microbiome, the bacteria flora in the gut, and what all the diseases we know, almost all the diseases that we have so far known are connected in changes in the gut microbiome. So the fact is that our body is not only a home for our human cells, but also a home for trillions of the microbes that live inside of us. And they are not only helping to digesting the food, they are also helping for development of our immune system, the maturation of our tissues and organs, our mental health. So basically they are in charge. And the fact is we have more bacteria and microbes in our body than our human cells. So that's very increasing field, very young field, although we have known about this, but this is quite young about the mechanism, what they are really doing and why they are so important. So it's a young, expanding field. So what we are talking about there, what is the research is showing is that we have the good bacteria, the so-called probiotics, lactobacillus, bifido, everything that we know and expose all the time. And we also have the bad bacteria, although they're important for some things happening in the body, but they are all living together in a harmonized ecosystem. But sometimes something goes wrong, depending on the new lifestyle, the stress, too much antibiotic use, or other chronic inflammatory conditions, there will be a disruption of this balance, and we will get more of the bad bacteria and less of the good bacteria. And this has been defined as a dysbiosis, changes of the gut microbiome, which in turn has been associated to a lot of diseases. Almost all the diseases that we know today, cancer, inflammatory diseases, gastro-related diseases. On the other hand, there are new fields coming up. For instance, the field of the gut-brain axis. We have a lot of evidence that connecting the gut to the brain and the inflammatory diseases of the CNS, like multiple sclerosis, if you are aware about that. Huge incidence in Scandinavia. And for sure, this field has been my major research field for many years. I've been doing research within this field for almost 20 years. So now we are talking about the impact of the gut microbiome on the drugs. Why not the drugs we have today is not really working in everybody? So for years, we have been speculating about the genes and backgrounds, nationalities. No way. It's the gut microbiome. So in our company, we are developing powerful probiotics for therapeutic use, having impact on the gut microbiome. So we are discovering, developing, and since 2 months ago, commercializing products for probiotics use to using and designing by pharmaceutical precision for management of the gastrointestinal as well as autoimmune conditions. So the assets of the company is a huge collection of the healthy lactobacilli probiotics, 150 bacteria in all small company we have. And we also have established a very advanced screening platform where we screen and select the bacteria with particular quality or biological effect of interest. They are so different. And we also have our first product, Gut Magnifique, just launched to the market. It's available on our web shop. I'm going to discuss more about that for management of the IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. I will get back to that. And we also have a program consisting of the what we call as companion probiotics, where we develop probiotic products to be combined with drugs. The drugs we have today, which are not completely working in all patients, to improve the efficacy, to reach out more patients, and also to inhibit unwanted side effects, which are usually gastro-related. So the pipeline in general looks like this, that Gut Magnifique has gone a very long journey, almost 15 years from the research now to the market. We launched as a pre-launch in October this year. And the companion probiotics, we are now focusing on a product for multiple sclerosis, which is my main expertise, to be used with the drugs available with problems. And also another product for IBD, Crohn's disease, and also colitis. So, in top of the best invention in the world, you also need the best team in the world, a team that are harmonized and they are sharing the same vision. I'm extremely blessed to have a wonderful team consisting of Greg Batchelor sitting in the audience here, our chairman. Greg has been working with a lot of successful companies in Lund. And I think majority are listed and quite successful. And Karin Larsson has a tremendous long background in the pharmaceutical companies, helping us with the business management. So we are surrounded, we also have our CFO Gunnar in the audience as well. So we also surrounded by clinicians. So that's how we have been marketing our products so far. We meet clinicians, we describe the science, the evidence. They love to work with us, we'll work with them. So far, the marketing strategy has been recommendations by the experts, by the clinicians, not only locally in Malmö Lund, but also here in Karolinska, where we planned for upcoming clinical studies. So, how we have been developing the company so far. So it started by our own money. We invested our own money, almost 6 million crowns at the beginning, just to minimize the risk, to be sure about the efficacy. Then we have opened and invited for external investments. We have received a seed investment 2018, almost 2.5 million Swedish crowns. And followed by next year, we have opened up Series A. We have received 4.3 million crowns. And all the way, we have received a lot of support and grants from not only the university and innovation centers, but also Vinnova, and the prestigious grants from Stenko Jonsson in Lund, and finally, EU Commission, which gave us a tremendous international attention about what we are doing. But what is it making our company different? So the thing is, we are talking about changes of the microbiome. So we have a microbiome in sick or ill patients and healthy. A lot of efforts has been on just trying to fix that. Is something missing? Reinforce that. Is something bad? Suppress that. But it hasn't been shown efficacy in the clinic. We consider that this is not enough. In this area, we are not talking only about the changes on the microbiome. We also have changes in the gut barrier function. We have a tremendous barrier epithelial cells here, a dynamic area, and working together with our immune system. We have the majority of our immune cells in that area. So this should mean something. So nobody is really caring to fix all the other problems, which is leakage in the gut, permeability changes because of the disruptions of the intestinal barrier, and also inflammation in the gut. So this is basically a holistic view we have in the company, developing products, multi-targeting, targeting different areas, on fixing the problem, causing the bacterial changes, and healing the barrier function, and suppressing inflammation, of course. So for this, we need a tool. So the first years of the company, we have been focusing on to get the tools which are probiotic lactobacilli, the best tools ever known so far in human history. So, but the thing is, we need a variety. How many times you have heard the probiotic bacteria good for your health? Are they all same? No, they are so different. Exactly the same way you can call them dogs, they are so different. So that's the same story with the probiotic lactobacilli. So in general, we try to collect a tremendous variety of these bacteria, everything isolated from food. Nothing from the poos, nothing from fecal samples as many other do, just healthy food from different areas in the world. We have isolated and we have identified, there's a long way to go, and a great diversity and for choice, to having a choice to pick up what we need. So on top of that, now all of our strains are all safe on the European EFSA, which is European Food Society, which association. So everything is healthy and everything considered as safe. We can market them with no problem whatsoever. So on top of that, we also have established a screening platform targeting different area, and I would like to describe this screening platform by our first product, which has been focused on the IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, which we have been asked by clinicians in Malmo to provide a solution. So IBS, as you know, is one of the major causes of the gastrointestinal problems in the world. 10–15% of population everywhere in the world are suffering from this in one way or another. So it usually defines by abdominal pain or constipations, diarrhea for a long time, bloating, and symptoms worsening by eating. So there's so-called leaky gut syndrome, which is caused by inflammation in the gut, making worse for these patients, actually, that they are avoiding a lot of good food, which is supposed to be good for them because they can't handle that. Depression and anxiety, actually, they are leaving and staying at home, cannot work for many cases. IBS also is existing together with many other conditions, like chronic fatigue syndrome, the horrible disease that you may have heard about that, and also many other, like autism, Sjögren's syndrome, MS, etc. Treatment, none. Self-management so far. So we have considered, okay, IBS is not only disruption of the microbiome, but of course we have identified what is it really changing the microbiome. What are the bad bugs, bad bacteria, bad guys? So we have screened our library by suppressing the bacteria causing problem. The candidates from there, they go to another selection criteria where we are interested to activate immune cells which ability to suppress inflammation, the so-called anti-inflammatory T lymphocytes. So screening, and not only screening to get the best candidates, to combine them, how best they work together, combinations. And then finally, the final candidates, we go through another models to see how we can heal a leakage in the gut, which is really common in the patients with IBS, how we can restore a disruption in the gut barrier function. So finally, a lot of other know-how, how to choose and take the best candidates, superheroes that work together, which is very important. You cannot just have any random probiotic bacteria put it in the market. People consider that, wow, cocktails of 10 bacteria could be good for me. No, because they should work together. So this is a lot of know-how we have within the company. So we are not only satisfied with the proof of concept in animals, a lot of things works in animals, but also in human. We have been testing it in human. In IBS is very different categories with the constipation and diarrhea. All patients have been really responding extremely well to the treatment. Also some other patients suffering from Clostridium difficile. No time to go through that, but we also have clinical data on that. So that was clear recommendation of clinicians, go for this product. We know what we have seen in our patients. So now the product has been launched, and during the way, a lot of people with IBS have been testing it with tremendous results. They have a lot of coming back, giving us nice feedback. I want more, I want to order more. That's the wonderful feeling we have so far received. And also patients with chronic fatigue syndrome, which also are involved with IBS. Almost 80% of patients also suffer from IBS. So these patients are living in bed years after years. These are examples of the patients in Stockholm, actually all registered in a Swedish-only clinic here at the Stora Sköndal, connected to the Karolinska, where patients already after a few months, they start to walk and now jogging after 6 months of use. So I don't mean that we are curing this disease, but it has been tremendous improving the quality of health. That is just like receiving a Nobel Prize, receiving these reports. So there is a plan for a clinical study with Karolinska, 90 patients as soon as possible after the new year. Now the ethical committee are working on permission. So God Magnific has done long way. The regulations, although we are doing everything like a drug development, the probiotics will be sold as a supplement, food supplement, nutritional supplement. It has been produced in Sacco in Italy, which is one of the European most experienced companies, have been doing for 80 years. And also Nutrilinea created our capsules, which are also very special capsules. So that it's not only enough to have a great substance, the administration is important. So we have used one of the world's best capsules known for a so-called delayed release, where they are really passing by the stomach, bypassing the stomach, ending up in the right places of the intestine, and then release the substance, guarantee the whole dosage in the right place. So, there are, of course, the clinical studies planned with the Karolinska, and the web shop has been launched now, so we are selling the product now. Was aimed for a Swedish customers, a Swedish market. At the beginning, now we are tremendously happy because we have received orders everywhere from Europe and also from US, which was not really planned because the text on the boxes is still Swedish. So we are aiming for a global marketing next year. We have already ordered. The industrial batch is done, so the capsules will be done early next year. So the patent is very strong. We are working with AVA, Sweden's best agency, already granted in South Africa. And we also have trademarks, God Magnific and Companion Probiotics, which is very much signifying the company's strength. Competitive edge, today we are very safe. So far the products has been tested for IBS. No, they haven't shown any efficacy. The reason is they haven't been designed for a purpose. So since we are really working from the scratch for a purpose, we have seen actually tremendous differences, what we have seen, that we are really reaching out different categories of patients with good, great results, which many other companies with established products could not do it before. So we are extremely happy for that. It's an increasing market, probiotic market, as you may know. So there is an estimation in upcoming 5 years, it's going to be increased for 8% from $5 up to $8 billion. So half of that will be owned by the US, of course, and 30% in Europe. So we are happy to be among those numbers. Huge interest for investments. So this is just an overview about what has been done, and mainly in US, as things are happening in Sweden as well. Metabogen has already received a couple of rounds of the investments from BioGaia. So it's a good example, but it's a huge interest. We have received tremendous international interest. We are invited to the meetings to present our concept. So there are great margins, more than 50% margins actually selling the product. And our strategy is not only business to consumer directly, it's for sure is business to business and mainly outside the Scandinavian market. Now we have ongoing discussions with distributors, international acknowledged distributors, and major interest for the research and our products. So this is an example about the revenue projections that we estimate to 2028. The estimation is that we are selling it both directly to the consumer and also business-to-business channels. So as a summary, that's our estimation. If you just reach out 1% of the IBS patients in the world, only 1%, and also chronic fatigue syndrome, which is increasing in the whole world, 25%. So the sum will be approximately more than 100 million Swedish crowns as a business-to-business and business-to-consumer, more than 40 million crowns. So I think I will jump over this. I just want to emphasize that there are other clinical studies to be planned, in particular already established for asthma. Happy for all the attentions. So here I would like to emphasize that now we are, ImmuneBiotech is open for subscription. We are raising 15 million Swedish crowns for the price per share 1,500 crowns. Closing January by the end of the January. This gives almost 15% of the shares of the company. So this will mainly focus on the maximizing the sale of the God Magnific, of course, generating more clinical data, more evidence, even in other conditions, and also develop the companion probiotics, where we have for MS in particular is a huge interest. We have already established contacts with the Karolinska performing studies, and we are ready for IPO. This is the plan within 2 years. So by that, I would like to thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shahram. A super interesting field that you're in. I have a few questions. You mentioned that you recently launched this new product, and Gut Magnific.
Yes.
And you also
Here it is.
brought with you a
Yes.
sample. You can try it in the
Absolutely.
lunch break.
Here. Yeah.
No, and you also mentioned that you have a web shop. What is the biggest challenge to reach a good market uptake for a new product like this?
Well, first of all, is convincing about the data. So the best thing we have done, although it's very tough for a small companies like ours, perform the studies, not only preclinical but even clinical studies. So the major challenge has been initially to convince the clinicians how good we are and why it works. But right now it feels that it's going much, much easier because once they're convinced, they talk to the colleagues and it just go very smooth. So we are extremely happy for that attention we have received. Another challenge, of course, is the financial investments because we are actually something in between, a borderline between the drug and food. So we are not a drug, although we are taking all the steps as a drug development. We are not food or functional food or yogurt company either. So that's another challenge because the investors usually are specialized in one or another. So this has also been a little bit challenging. So far has been very much attention from the investors have already invested in the microbiome field have been much easier to convince. And also some business agents with the interest actually for something new approach in this market.
This might be a stupid question, but being then, like you said, in the middle between two different fields, is this a product that would be possible to add as in, for example, yogurt?
Absolutely, no problem. I give it to my youngest daughter, 3 years old. She has eczema many years. So we actually released the substance from the capsule, mix it with the yogurt. She has been taking it, and already after 2 weeks of use, not every day necessarily, but regular intake, no eczema anymore. And we have seen many other examples as well. So
that would be a very small scale. And on the big commercial scale, could you sort of go into a partnership with?
Yeah, absolutely. We cannot sell it on web shop, and it's going to take a long time. So of course not. We have so far received very good attention from the distributors, and we have ongoing discussions. I cannot really disclose. Very nice, good discussions with established manufacturers that they are very happy to dig into the data and take a look at the market, and they are very happy actually helping us to reach out everywhere. So it looks very good so far, I can say today.
And speaking of data, you mentioned also that you're planning a clinical trial with Karolinska.
Yes.
On 90 patients?
90 patients. It's going to be 3 arms. It's a randomized double blind where we have the placebo group and we have 2 dosages, the same dose as we have here and one higher doses. And the pills are already ordered. So the thing is that these patients suffer both from chronic fatigue syndrome, myalgic encephalitis, but also IBS. So it's going to be 2 readouts. We're going to get more data for IBS, one hand, and another hand is whether this can really help these patients. And for that particular disease, there are no medications, no solutions whatsoever. So hopefully, if we can do a little bit improve of the quality of health, this is going to be the world's first product for them. So we are extremely, enormously happy for that.
And seeing as ImmuneBiotech is not a listed company, it's always fun to talk to unlisted companies because you can say more. But you did mention that an IPO is in the plans.
Yes.
Is that the only route to commercialization?
No, absolutely not. So there might be other options as well. We are taking revenues, and we don't know. It might be we will be. Some actors internationally would like to buy the whole company or part of that. So another option would be that ImmuneBiotech can be as a spin-out, and then it can actually live another life, and also that can be listed. So there are different scenarios, actually. We are not excluding anyone. But there is aim. There is aim for listing, so that's actually planned, and this is exactly what we are going to do. So, yeah.
I should also ask, where are questions in the audience?
Please.
We start there.
You seem to have limited yourself to some strains of lactobacillus. But surely there are other species of bacteria that are most probably beneficial. Are you contemplating adding other
Absolutely,
species of bacteria
absolutely,
to your product?
absolutely. We cannot have all good strains in the world in one collection. Absolutely not. So far it has been. They are our own, so it's much easier to work on. But absolutely, we are open. In fact, we are looking at other strains as well to include. Definitely, yes.
And we have another question.
When will you get your first human data?
We have already pilot studies. So that's why we are so convinced that we put this on the market. So we know it works.
And how many patients?
There have been
Published the data?
no, there are preliminary data, also pilot studies with the clinicians in Malmö and Lund. But right now there are a lot of observations from the consumers. But the first randomized nice study will be performed at Karolinska soon after the new year. Yes.
Readout will be
2 readouts for chronic fatigue syndrome and IBS. Yes.
what year?
For the year. Yeah, we will start immediately, hopefully once we have the permission from ethical committee, and it's going to take 4 months. So until summer next year, the data will be available.
And what preclinical models? Is it animal or cells?
Both. So it's a combination. In vitro, ex vivo, in vivo, and the animal models we have used. So although there are not good models for IBS, no way. So we have actually tried different models to really have different parameters causing the disease. And in particularly the leaky gut, we have the MS model. I published myself that this model, animals with MS, have the leaky gut. So we have been first in the world. So we have actually created that model for screening purposes. And that's very unique. Thank you.
We had one more question.
Just wondering, how much do you
So I should just repeat this for the sound. Is how important is social media for boosting the interest for this field?
Yeah, it is enormous. We haven't had time so much to be active ourselves, although we have one person helping us recently. But we know it's tremendous interest, but at the same time, the patients, the consumers themselves have done the job for us so far, and we are so happy for that. But of course, you have right, but we are not interested to be equal to many other actors doing that, because we don't want to manipulate any opinion. We want the people order the product, get the feeling, if it works, write about that. If it doesn't work, also write about that. That's exactly what we have been doing so far.
Transparency is
Yeah.
king. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to go forward in the program. And I am happy to introduce today's final speaker from OssDsign. And this is Henrik Hjort,
Thank you.
Marketing Director.
Thank you. And last but not least, thanks for staying. Thanks for allowing me to present OssDsign. We are an Uppsala-based company. We are, since May this year, publicly traded at Nasdaq First North. Our roots are in Uppsala, but we have, even though we're in an early commercial phase, we've already made a bit of a global mark, I hope. Okay. It started with unmet clinical needs. If you go to a few of these presentation events and hear a few medical device and medtech companies, I'm sure that you hear this quite a lot, but in our case, it's actually true also. We are looking at pictures of complications that you see with traditional implant technologies for reconstruction of the skull and the face. To the top right, you see a typical infection picture, right there. In the US, this is about a $100,000 problem to the hospital if it occurs within the first 3 months, and they have to carry the cost for it. These complications are not uncommon when traditional implant technologies made from inert plastic materials or metals such as titanium are being used. The infection I was talking about could be prevalent in about 10% of the cases, depending on which study you look at. And when this happens, the implant has to go out. The patient has to recover, and a new implant has to be put in. So with our technology, we have shown in clinical studies that are peer-reviewed and published that we can get down to 2% of these infectious complications that require implant removal. So what is it that we do? We do custom-made implants for cranial and facial reconstruction. Our process works in a way that we get image data from our customers, normally neurosurgeons, CT data that we analyze. We design an implant that we propose to the customer. The customer then looks at it and either approves it or comments it and maybe asks us to make minor modifications and changes to it. So we can have a dialogue back and forth with our customers. And all this takes place on a web platform that is secure and protects the patient integrity. We can do it from Uppsala, serve customers worldwide. Once our customers have approved the implant, they also approve the cost of the implant. All our implants are individually priced depending on the size of the implant and the complexity of the implant. Once everything is approved, we start manufacturing, and that takes about 4 weeks, and then we deliver the implant sterile and ready for surgery and to any market we serve. So what is unique with our implants? Well, unlike the implants I mentioned earlier and showed the nasty pictures of the complications with, our implant is made from a composition of calcium phosphates. So it's a ceramic material that has the unusual but very good characteristic that when implanted into the human body, it slowly but surely remodels into the patient's natural bone tissue. So we build bone back by using our implants. This is a calcium phosphate material. It's a ceramic material. By nature, these materials are brittle. So the other pillar of our technology is our ability to reinforce the material with strong 3D printed titanium, as you can see in this picture to the right-hand side, where we kind of digitally shaved off the ceramic material. So what we're doing is we're taking an old concept of reinforcing concrete, and we're applying it to the implant area. So we're combining the very good mechanical capacity of the titanium with the really unique biological features of our proprietary calcium phosphate composition. These are the products we have on the market currently. A lot of focus on OssDsign Cranial PSI, which is our patient-specific cranial product. But we also do patient-specific cranial accessories, which are plastic details that are used for making a neurosurgical procedure such as a cranioplasty easier, safer, faster. They're much appreciated by our customers. We also just recently released this product and introduced it to our direct markets in Europe and in the US. It's called CranioPlug. It's a burr hole filler. When you don't have to take out a lot of bone for a cranial procedure, you can do with just drilling a hole. And CranioPlug is intended to fill and cover that hole. It builds on the same principles and the same concept as OssDsign Cranial. It's a combination of titanium and this bone regenerative ceramic material that we use. So it's intended to be an off-the-shelf product. It serves the same customer groups, but it's a high-volume product, targets neurosurgeons like OssDsign Cranial does. And then we also have OssDsign Facial patient-specific implants, which are, again, the same concept, titanium-reinforced ceramic implants that have a bone regenerative capacity intended to be used for reconstruction of facial defects that could be the results of a congenital defect or a tumor or trauma. So, commercially, we are selling directly with our own sales teams in our home market in Sweden, as well as in Germany and in the UK. We have distribution partners in Spain, Italy, Austria, and in Greece. And we are about to launch in France. We have been just recently received access to the French national reimbursement systems. So we will be one of 3 products for cranial reconstruction that have access to this reimbursement system. So we're currently in discussions with partners, and we're very much looking forward to a launch in France as well soon. Our most important market, however, is the US market. I'll come back to that in a little while in some more detail. As I said, we went public in May this year. Here are a couple of highlights from what's been going on since. It's been busy. As I mentioned, the reimbursement in France for OssDsign Cranial came through recently. In the UK, we've been listed with the NHS and received a contract with them, which, without getting into too much technical details of the contract, basically allows or makes it easier for UK hospitals to order our products, and it makes it easier for them to pay us. So it's a very good foundation for continuous growth in the UK. I also said we launched Cranial Plug in our direct markets, and we're currently rolling it out for clinical evaluation purposes, and everything's looking good. In the US, we have large things going on. For those of you who have followed us a little while, you know that we went into the US with a setup where we used a master distributor company in California. They had the legal and the logistic responsibilities for distributing the product. And they also built a distributor network of local and regional distributors throughout the US. As we announced as part of the IPO process, our intention has always been to take over this responsibility ourselves. And that's what we're doing right now. We've set up our own US organizations. We've set up a US office. And we are currently staffing up our US organization. At the same time, we're optimizing our distributor network in the US. FDA also recently cleared our cranial accessories, so that hopefully will help to drive sales even more in the US. And also in the US, Cranial Plug, as I've talked about, has been launched and is currently at many hospitals undergoing what is known as a VAC approval process. VAC stands for Value Analysis Committee, and it's basically a way for each and every hospital to evaluate that any product that wants to come into that hospital can show that it has a clinical benefit that sort of outweighs the costs. Otherwise, they would be flooded in new products. So all our products have to undergo a VAC approval process at each and every hospital in the US. And the number of US accounts is accelerating steadily. And I think during the last year, we've seen more than 30% of our current customers have come over the last year. So I'll get back to details on the development in the US. Exciting things also in Japan. We filed recently during summer for OssDsign Cranial with the Japanese regulatory authorities. So that file is undergoing review. And while it is going through the review process, we have identified a market entry strategy, and we are in partner discussions. Due to some very high initial interest in our products in Japan, we were able to collaborate with Japanese neurosurgeons, and under an ethical approval, they could do surgery prior to the regulatory clearance. And this was done last winter, the first surgery. So in October, during the annual neurosurgical meeting in Japan, the initial data was presented, and everything looks very good. And this surgery team has decided to expand the series and use both OssDsign Cranial and OssDsign Cranial Plug. So the hope is that once we get the regulatory clearance and we have signed a distribution partnership, we have access to some Japanese clinical data, and we can kind of hit the ground running when everything is put in place. So some financial highlights from our Q3 report. Sales are growing, and that's good. We saw an uptick of the sales in the third quarter compared to last year with 41%. That was in large driven by a strong development in the US, where we more than doubled our sales compared to last year. However, as I mentioned initially, we are still at an early commercial phase, so comparing our sales data to last year, it's a little bit silly, to be honest. So what we should be doing is probably look at the quarterly growth. In US, then, our most important market, we had a bit of a hiccup in the early earlier in the year, mainly attributed to the fact that we announced that we were going to take over responsibilities from the master distributor, and I think this shook up the market a little bit. However, third quarter, we're back on track. We also see that what we communicated during the spring in the IPO process, that we were going to take in more cash and invest that predominantly in building up the US sales and marketing organization, is already starting to pay off. And this is what we've been busy doing. In the US, by far and away the most important market that we're in. We're now targeting 10 target states and 20 metropolitan areas. We've set up our own OssDsign office between Washington, D.C. and Baltimore on the East Coast. In that office, you can find the VP of Commercial Operations, our Operations Director for the US, and an Area Director, Sales Director for the East Coast. We also have representation in the Central US and on the West Coast. And during the year, we're also supporting this team with technical sales managers in other key areas, such as Florida, Texas, and the San Francisco Bay Area. And the intention then with this organization is they're going to work alongside our distribution network and support them and help them drive sales. So that's the model in the US. In summary, I think we're well positioned for strong growth going forward. We see continued good results in our direct European markets. The growth in the US accelerates as a result of the investments we have made with the money we took in during the IPO process. And we're about to launch into very important and interesting markets, France and Japan. On the product side, we just introduced CranioPlug as our first off-the-shelf product based on the same technology. We are looking to do line extensions on the CranioPlug for specialized surgical procedures such as evacuation of subdural hematomas. And we will also, during next year, accelerate activities for our facial implants to start driving that and building that market as well. That will also, at some point, be followed by regulatory filing in the US. So, to conclude, this is a bit of our mindset. If you don't serve patients every day, make sure you serve someone who does. And I would like to take this opportunity just to show you a short case that will serve as a good example of the lives we get to be part of improving and sometimes even maybe saving. This is a CT from a lady who arrived in Sweden a couple of years ago. She came from a country in Africa. She had a plaque meningioma. As you can see, it's a big tumor that grows through her skull bone. You can see the part that's growing outwards, but you can't see the part that was growing inwards. She came to the hospital complaining about headaches. The doctors gave her a limited time to live initially. But through a collaboration between our design engineers and the team at the hospital, really in depth, we were able to help them with the design of a couple of implants, the surgical tools, and also related to the surgical procedure itself. So really a collaborative work that eventually saved this lady, and this is a couple of months after her two first surgical procedures, where more than 70% of her skull was replaced with an artificial implant from OssDsign. We even made the news. She made the news, to be honest. We didn't. Yeah. So with that, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present, and I'll be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Henrik. Fascinating work that you're doing.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna jump straight into the market situation.
Yep.
You mentioned that you have changed the strategy in the US, which is a very big market.
Yeah, well, can I just
sure.
Can I comment on the question?
Yes.
It's really not a change in the strategy. This is a planned thing since we started working with the master distributor. That when a couple of trigger points happened, we were going to take over. So this was planned. Everyone knew about it, and we're just executing according to plan. So we're not changing strategy. We are, but it's planned. So it's just a distinction to make.
I stand corrected.
Oh, that's fine.
So the process of gaining uptake in the U.S. market and adding more more footprint, so to speak. Can you give us a short description of how that works in your case?
Yeah, I mean, in our case, since this is it's a bit of a niche market. It's not a surgical procedure that is done in large volumes everywhere. So what's really key for us is to get access to the centers and the hospitals and the surgeons who actually see high volumes of patients who specialize in this. And that we do best by building relations with the distribution partners that we have, because they have this access. The relation in the US between an orthopedic or neurosurgeon and their service rep could be very strong. So we're trying to tap into their network and make it profitable for them to sell our products, which also means that we need to make sure that they are well educated, that we're working closely with them, especially in the early ways, to kind of bring on new customers. And I think we've been fairly successful in that first part. And now we're about to kind of dig deeper into every account and build volume. So.
Well, you show the graph is going the right direction.
Yes, it's looking good. And what I didn't mention, which I should have mentioned, and as we mentioned in our Q3 report, is that this trend that we see in the US seems to be carrying over also in the fourth quarter this year.
Okay. And you also mentioned the fact that you received the reimbursement, or it's okay in France.
Yes.
So what would that mean on a larger scale for the company?
Yeah, difficult to say. I can't quantify it, obviously, but France is a big market. There's a lot of French people in France, so that's a good start. And what's even better is that, from our point of view, is that it's only 3 companies, 3 products that have access to this central reimbursement system. So we believe that we can quite quickly get to a pretty decent market share in France. And despite that we haven't formally launched yet, we're already selling in France. So that's probably a good sign that.
I was going to say that's a good start to selling before you start.
Selling before you launch is always the preferred way. Yeah.
Is there any questions from the audience? Yes.
Could you maybe give financial guidance or long-term goals or anything? When do you reach?
I cannot. We have not communicated any such goals. I think the only thing we have said is prior to the IPO that we will reach a turnover on 200 million SEK in 2023. So.
Are you on track?
We hope so.
Yeah. Another question?
Just a question about the product. Will your implant be replaced by the patient's own bone eventually, or is it only the edges that will grow together with the patient's bone?
That's a good question. Obviously, it's difficult for us to study this on a larger scale in human because we just would not get the ethical approval to do that. We have, however, studied explant data, which is also published in World Neurosurgery in our publication from last year, where we see that it is not only at the perimeter that bone builds in the implant. It's also actually in the center of the implant. That process will continue, but it's obviously a slow process. We see the same type of pattern in preclinical studies, that it's not only about the border and fusion. It's also actually within the implant itself.
How important is the, I think you mentioned the gathering clinical data, well, from patient use. How important is that, the quantification of that data for your future sales, so to speak? Can you?
Clinical data is always, it's key in medical devices and especially in implants, and it should be. You want that as a potential patient yourself. So yes, we are constantly looking for collaborations with key opinion leading surgeons to gather more data. Now, as I mentioned, the surgical volumes are rather low. The patient population is quite heterogeneous when you look at cranioplasty patients. So making this big randomized controlled trial is difficult or would take a very long time. So what we're doing now is instead we're engaging with the clinical community to set up clinical registries to be able to capture real data from their use of our products as well as other products. So it's going to take a while, but it's something that we see as key and something that we're happy to be part in driving and investing in.
Thank you very much, Henrik.
Thank you.
If there are more questions, we have one more question in the back. That's the final one. So I have to repeat.
Yeah.
I'm just going to read. How do you look at your cost of sales and the cost? No, sorry.
Yeah, cost of customer acquisition.
Cost of customer acquisition and cost of an operation. Long term.
Long term, yeah. What I can say is that right now, which is in accordance with the plans we presented or during the spring, is that we'll be using the proceeds from the IPO to invest in market-related activities, predominantly in the US, but also in Europe and in future also in Japan. This will lead to that you see an increased burn rate, but hopefully we can turn that around already next year or start seeing that the burn rate shrinks. So that's probably the best answer I can give.
Well, thank you very much, Henrik. And any further questions, you can take them with something to eat outside. And that was the final presentation of today's BioStock Live from Stockholm. And thank you very much for watching and for coming today. Thank you.